Good morning. Nathan Harter, Decatur County Prosecutor. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, this is your first time in here since we've been going on YouTube with the morning program. So there you are.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That is a new development. Okay.
It is a new development.
Well, I'm glad I shaved.
Well, yeah.
You want to make sure we're looking presentable.
Glad I warned you.
Fair enough. Hey, did you see they think they discovered a cache of pencils that belonged to William Shakespeare? Did you see that? Like a bunch of.
Now, you being serious now?
Well, they said that they're really like chewed off on the ends, so they're not sure whether they're to be or not to be.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
In keeping with the theme, I guess.
Well, you had me for a second because I thought maybe they did.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know when the pencil was invented. I assume he wrote in.
Okay, good. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, I don't know. While we're sharing jokes, I will say I've been trying to up my game over these last several years. My dad joke game.
Yeah, how's that going for you?
Your listeners can see how it's going for me. I think that's not good jokes, but good dad jokes. I think that qualifies as one that. Yeah, we can all sort of groan alongside one another at that particular punchline.
Well, who's William Shakespeare then? When you talk dad jokes.
Oh, well, yeah. No, that's true. You got to make sure you got that right. But actually, speaking of dad things, I should exercise a point of personal privilege here. Today is Ezekiel Harter's first birthday.
Yeah?
And we're very excited. I was excited to be the first one to wish him happy birthday this morning. And, of course, he can't. At 1 year old, he doesn't know, and I don't know that he's listening, but even if he did, he couldn't understand. But I wanted to wish him a happy first birthday, and some of your listeners will know that we've had some health issues with him where his skull, you know how babies have a soft spot in the back part of their skull? He didn't have the soft spot. The skull was already solid.
Okay.
And so that would not allow the brain to grow safely within the skull. It would misshape the skull and potentially cause brain damage and so on. And so the good folks at Riley took really good care of us and created an artificial soft spot that would allow the skull then to expand with the brain while it was growing. And that was July of last year we had that surgery. And since they took good care of us, he's been perfectly healthy, and they're fixing him all the way up.
Wow.
And then he's had to wear this helmet,
right,
which is distinguishing some of his personality as a little kid. But now that he's 1 year old, we're optimistic the doctor is about to tell us he can take the helmet off and go about life as a normal kid. So this is a major milestone. We're looking forward to saying hats off to you, letting him have his helmet off.
Yeah.
And we'll look fondly at this period. Hopefully he never has any ill effects from this little chapter here that we can point back to.
So now will he get his own cake and you just let him have at it?
I confess these are arrangements that I've left to Rachel. She's really good at this sort of thing. I think that's the idea because that's what we did with the other two boys. And I imagine we'll have some friends and family nearby and let him, dig into some cake and take
blue icing.
So, actually, you know what? This is not why I came in today to tell personal stories. But while we're there, we did a gender reveal party for Zeke.
Okay.
And we had the first two boys, and so we had everybody placing wagers as whether it was going to be a boy or a girl and so on. And for whatever reason, the only kind of cake we had was a yellow cake mix.
Okay.
And so you take the yellow cake mix, and it was going to be a boy, and so Rachel put blue food coloring in it. The cake turned out green. And so the boys cut into this cake to see, is it a boy or a girl? Is it blue or pink on the inside? And they're like, it's a lizard. It's an alien. It was not, in fact, a blue cake. But so not every party has gone exactly to plan.
It's still a fun idea, but yeah.
A good memory we'll hold on to for a really long time. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Green cake.
Green cake, the green gender reveal. So, anyway, that is not why your listeners tuned in this morning to hear my personal stories, but thank you for indulging me in saying happy birthday to young Zeke, and here's hoping the helmet comes off soon.
All right, that'll be all in the hands of the Riley folks.
Yes, to whom we are immensely grateful.
We hear a lot of good stories coming from Riley.
Yes,
with families.
We had a moment of panic when our surgeon said, well, I've done this surgery 2 or 3, and we thought she was going to say she'd done the surgery 2 or 3 times, like it was super rare, because this was an experienced doctor.
Okay.
I've done this surgery 200 or 300 times. Oh, okay. All right. Very routine surgery for her, and everything has gone the way it was supposed to. So, Riley, I'll take the check in the mail. But we are going to say kind things about Riley for the rest of our lives because of what good care they took care of Zeke and took care of us, the family, during that time. Just remarkable. Anyway, so I guess I should put on my prosecutor hat.
What's going on with the...
Yeah, so the jail population is around 120 this morning. And of those, 30 have already been sentenced, and so we're just waiting on DOC to come pick them up or for them to finish serving their sentence here locally, depending on what their sentence is. I don't see any on the jail list that show that they're being housed for other communities. We're not sending any of our own out and paying other communities to house our inmates. That was one of the benefits when we had the old jail. We were sending a lot of inmates elsewhere and paying a per-day rate. And we don't have to do that anymore because we have the capacity to house our own inmates now. So that's a savings of a sort, or an offset to the overall cost. So that's a good thing. I was looking at our filing numbers, and it got a little bit easier because I could just do it by the quarter instead of how many days we've gone and so on. It looks like we're going to file around 1,000, depending on how the summer picks up. Usually the summer months we get a little warmer and the numbers tick upwards a little bit. School lets out, that tends to increase our numbers a little bit. So it could be a little over 1,000. I'm going to guess between 1,000 and 1,100 probably this year.
For the year?
I'm sorry, for the year.
Okay.
For our total number of criminal cases filed. And we're resolving at a much faster rate. Looking at the most recent numbers, it looks like we did a little over 300 cases resolved. So about 250 filed and about 300 resolved puts us at filing between 1,000 and 1,100 and resolving between 1,100 and 1,200. So we are being efficient in the way that I would hope that we are. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to come and report that to your listeners. I think that's a good accountability tool for how we're doing in the office, but also is a good tool internally for us to say, how are we doing, and to keep track of that sort of thing. So that's sort of the rough reporting of numbers from the front end. I didn't have any in particular that I wanted to highlight that we resolved to the public. And frankly, kind of a short report today. I did want to highlight that Emily Shebler and Elizabeth Lecker-Hostetler, both deputies in my office, who started as interns in my office, decided that they wanted to reach out to their law school that they had gone to, which is the IU McKinney School of Law in Indianapolis, and wanted to reach out to them specifically for the purpose of building up our internship program, continuing to strengthen it.
Okay.
So I gave them a small budget for pizza and gave them some time to go hit the law school and talk to law students there. And they were really clever about how they did it. 'Cause I gave them a lot of autonomy to figure out the details. And McKinney, the law school in Indianapolis, has a day program and a non-traditional hybrid nighttime program for people who are working. And so there are a lot of folks who work during the day for a government job or any kind of job, really. And then they come to the law school of an evening.
Okay.
And they take their law classes at night. Usually takes a little bit longer, like 4 years instead of 3. But a lot of times those students graduate with no debt or very little debt, and so it can be a really good option for folks. In any event, because of the way that the schedule works at the law school, there is a window of time when the day students, the traditional students, are finishing all their classes at the same time that the night students or the non-traditional students are showing up to start their classes. And you can get most of the student body in one place at one time. And if you know the layout of the school, you can set your table out and say, hey, come talk to us, and provide, I don't know, pizza to these starving students and get a lot of good interest. We didn't know how much pizza to get. I forget how many they said, whether it was 10 or 20 large pizzas from a nearby pizza place. And they said they were gone in 20 minutes. And they were set up to table for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. and had to order more pizza to try to hold people's interest. But they had a really good time there. They, in addition to enjoying themselves, it was also productive. We were able to help explain to, especially the new students, what we call 1L or first year law students, the process for becoming what's called a certified legal intern, which I may have explained to your listeners before, but we hire undergraduates, we hire first-year law students, we hire second-year law students, occasionally third-year law students as well, although they're usually tending to work towards their schooling, or I'm sorry, to their formal employment for after law school.
Okay.
And so we have all different varieties of experience that come through to intern. And we have a category that's just called legal intern for folks who are not yet certified. And then we have this separate category called certified legal interns. Certified legal interns have a lot more power to get things done autonomously. So they can go to court. They can speak on the record. They can conduct jury trials. They can negotiate and sign plea deals. It still has to be under supervision, but they're allowed to do basically whatever an attorney can do once they're certified. And in order to get that power, they have to have gone through the Indiana Supreme Court to get that certification. They have to have finished half of their schooling. They have to have taken the professional responsibility class, and they have to have passed an exam called the MPRE, which is an ethics exam. And once they've done all of those things, they can petition to become certified legal interns, which then opens up the door for them to act more like an attorney in practice and practical experiences than before they have that certification.
So when they go for that certification, about how long a period of time does that take to achieve that?
So generally speaking, it's halfway through your education. So if you're doing a 4-year program, it's usually after year 2 is over. The traditional law school experience is 3 years. And so it's usually spring of your 2L year, your second year of law school. That's, I think, how Emily and Elizabeth both did it. It's how I did it. Mm-hmm. Because I started in the prosecutor's office as an certified legal intern back in 2012, I guess. And that's how we started the whole experience. And we try to encourage people that if they will stay with us for multiple semesters, we will be able to give them increasing responsibilities and sort of work them up to where they're learning what it's like to be a deputy prosecutor, what differentiates a deputy prosecutor from a chief deputy or the elected, and what those different responsibilities. And so we might try to take an intern during their 1L year when they're not as useful, in order to get them educated on how our office works and how the practice of law works and what it's like to have this kind of hearing happen, so that when they turn the corner into being certified legal interns, they can immediately hit the ground running and make the most of that experience in our office.
Now, as far as when you talk about the internship, are they salaried internships? Are they paid? And does it make a difference if 1L or 2L with certification?
It does make a difference, and it also depends on what their academic needs are. So we work with the different law schools to see what they need, and to the individual student to meet their needs. I know that when I started, I remember calling Jim Rosenberry to ask for an internship experience. And it was very quick where he was like, I don't have any money to pay for an intern. Thanks so much for calling. And I heard him start to hang up the phone, and I was like, no, I'm doing it for academic credit, not for money.
Okay.
And I heard him pick the phone back. I was like, okay. Well, in that case, your interview's next Friday. And so we were taking advantage of that free labor. but providing me a wonderful experience in
Right.
return. And then eventually I got certified and was able to provide more value, and he decided he had found some room in the budget to actually pay. I've tried to follow that model some in our program. We have a rate of pay for undergraduate interns, a rate of pay for law students, a slightly higher rate for certified legal interns, and then technically we have another rate that's very rarely used for graduates of law school who have not yet passed the bar. We call them law clerks. And so there's an increasing salary range for each of those levels. We don't provide benefits. It's not full-time salaried in that sense, but it is paid. Mm-hmm. And that's assuming that folks aren't doing it for credit. The rules are I'm not supposed to give them academic credit and pay them for the same any one given work hour. But what we'll do sometimes is we'll say, if you're going to work for us for an entire summer and you need X number of hours to get 2 credit hours or 3 credit hours of internship towards your degree, once you've hit those hours, then we'll transition into making you paid for the remainder of your summer experience. And that tends to help people offset the expenses of driving from wherever it is they're living down here to work.
So how successful were they in their campaign?
I think very successful. They had, I think they said a couple hundred people come through the line and talk to them about the internship experience. We certainly gained a lot of clarity about what the law school needs are in order to communicate with these students. They have an online portal that we need to set up a profile for, because they all were saying, are you guys on this website? We want to find more information about you.
Sure.
We don't have time to sit and talk all day, but we'd love to learn more. And so we learned we need to do that. We were very successful at communicating about the certified legal internship process, because very few students had even heard about that and didn't know.
Is that right?
They
Wow.
didn't know the kinds of experience they could get. And in particular, I think these two were particularly good advocates for the office. On the one hand, they are both personable and good advocates generally. That's why I hired them to be deputy prosecutors. But on top of that, what they had to say was, we started as interns and now we're deputy prosecutors in the same office we interned in. So we had a good experience, we were trained well, we liked it well enough to come back. And that very briefly set the stage for, and that's why you should join us, as an argument. So they got a lot of traction. We already have started receiving resumes back from the law students that are interested in joining us. I'm going to give them about another week to send in interest, and then we're going to start scheduling interviews for interns who may join us this summer or this fall or next spring. And we're just going to keep building on that. In addition to learning maybe how we can do that tabling a little better, we know to buy more pizza. We know
Well, yeah, you can never buy
aside.
too many pizzas.
No, well, then bring it back to the office.
Absolutely.
But it went really, really well. I was very pleased to have sort of delegated that responsibility to them. They were excited to go do it, and they really knocked it out of the park. It was a great experience. And you've met some of the interns that we've brought through here.
Absolutely, we
My
have.
goodness,
Yeah.
the quality that we've been able to bring to work at the office, and then to hope to attract to come home and to combat this phenomenon we call brain drain, where our best and brightest are sometimes leaving communities like ours. To instead retain talent that we have that's homegrown, or attract new talent to the area. We're doing our part to do that, and I've been really pleased with the interns we've had, and excited about the prospects of adding to that legacy.
So, when you look at the legislature, does it look like the still funding for prosecutors throughout the state, or what's actually going for? Which fund does that fit into the funds for the?
Yeah, so thank you for remembering. We do have a bill that is moving through the legislature. It's called 1006. Basically, the legislature has decided that every year the agenda bill, they call it, the bill that they're highlighting that has to do with criminal issues, will carry the designation 1006.
Okay.
So if it's whatever their most important priorities are, that's the other thing they'll call it, is a priority bill. Whatever their priority is regarding criminal law gets 1006. 1006 this year is the prosecutor funding bill, where the state would help local communities like ours by reimbursing up to 50% of the cost of deputy prosecutors, salaries and benefits, in order to help offset the expense that counties have to pay these lawyers. I mean, these people with Juris Doctorates, terminal degrees, to ensure that they're being paid fairly for what they do, to make sure that we're competitive with other branches of government, legal profession, but also private sector. Competitive with. We're not ever going to catch up to the private sector, but to be competitive with. And so that bill has movement. It passed through the House. It passed through, I think it's called Ways and Means on the House side, the Financial Committee. It passed the full House. And then at the halfway point, it moved over to the Senate, where it has Senate sponsors, sort of like when a bill is written, it gets an author. And then when it switches houses from the House to the Senate or from the Senate to the House, it gets a new author, but they don't call those authors, they call them sponsors. And so it picked up a sponsor or three in the Senate. It went to the first committee that has to do substantively with criminal law, and it passed out of that committee pretty easily, pretty handily. And now it's been recommitted to the Senate Appropriations Committee, and that is the financial committee on the Senate side. And so basically it has to do all six. It has to do the substantive committee in the House, the financial committee in the House, the full House, the substantive committee in the Senate, the fiscal committee in the Senate, and then the full Senate. And then depending on how it's been changed, it may have to go to what's called a conference committee, which is where they hammer out the differences between what passed in the two different houses. So I guess you could actually say it's 7 different versions that it has to make it through. So we're through 4 of those hurdles, and we are reaching out to our Indiana state senators to express to them how important this is, how transformational this will be for the local communities, especially agrarian, rural communities. In terms of allowing us to pay our deputy prosecutors what they're worth and make sure that we're attracting talent to one of our most important legal jobs, which is holding people accountable when they break our norms and break our laws and endanger people.
So now, did this legislation in particular come about from the studies that were done showing prosecutor shortages throughout the state?
Very good, yes. So your listeners might recall that there's a firm out of Muncie called Wagner, Irwin, Shealy. And they're very well respected across the state for doing municipal staffing studies. Do we have the right number of employees? Do we pay them correctly? Do we categorize them correctly? Exempt, non-exempt, that sort of thing, salaried, hourly. And so they have been doing that for local communities all over the state for a very long time, developed a wonderful reputation. The Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council enlisted that firm to study the state of prosecution across the state of Indiana. Do we have enough prosecutors? How are they paid? How does that compare to other government lawyers? How does that compare to the private sector? And what they found was that in order to meet the basic caseload management standards that have been adopted by the Indiana Supreme Court and the Public Defender's Council and so on, in order to meet those standards, we are approximately 450 lawyers short across the state of Indiana to meet those needs. And then they broke it down by county. And here in Decatur County, we were a couple of attorneys short, not anywhere near the total of the 450, as you can imagine. A lot of those are in Marion County or Allen County. But we were a couple of attorneys short here of meeting those needs. And so they put together this whole report showing how deficient we were in order, and it's really miraculous we're meeting the mission given how short-staffed we are. And then on top of that, they were able to show that the average starting salary for prosecutors, the average salary for prosecutors lagged behind even other government lawyers, let alone private sector. And so if we're not being competitive with other government agencies, it's hard to attract and retain talent as compared to those other agencies, which just naturally attract that talent because they can pay better. So that study we took to other legislators, the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council, took to a few legislators and said, guys, this has to change. We have a lot of these legal deserts out here in rural Indiana. Decatur County is part of those, is a part of a legal desert. We need more lawyers, not fewer, which I know is not an argument that's terribly sympathetic. More lawyers, I get that. But in order to service the local community, you do need a certain number of lawyers. The studies are pretty clear. You need a certain number in order to meet the needs of a community. And the rule of thumb is you want approximately one lawyer per 1,000 residents in a given community. And I don't have an accurate count for Decatur County right now, but I think the number is like something like 12 that practice here in Decatur County. And we've got 27,000 people. So we're about half of what we need in terms of local attorneys, and other counties nearby us are in a similar position. So this bill is meant to help address that and to alleviate those concerns by bringing more attorneys into the community. Some of them will stay in prosecution, others will go out and hang up a shingle or join another firm, and hopefully that helps combat some of those problems.
So now, Nathan, within the last couple of weeks, we've had an opportunity to talk with the ARC of Decatur County in recovery, and also Speranza House.
Good.
How when you look at the court system and what's happening there, how do you think those have fared in connection with your office?
Oh, it's night and day difference how much more opportunity there is today than there was 10 years ago when I took over the prosecutor's office. I'm not saying that's causative. I know what it was like when I took over, and I know what it's like now. The options that are available for folks who are struggling with addiction or other behavioral health needs have just exploded, and in a positive way. They are flourishing, and we are so pleased that people have more choices now, more available opportunities and resources to help them beat their addiction issues, to cope with their addiction issues, get their feet planted firmly under them so that they can be productive members of society. I wouldn't say we're all the way there yet. I don't think any community ever would say they've declared victory over substance abuse. But these are huge strides in the right direction with the private entities that you mentioned. But add to that the wellness court.
The wellness court, yeah.
Doug Brown is so instrumental in from my office, and the CIT program that Mike Eggleston has put together. The opportunities are just tremendous compared to where we were 10 years ago. We have truly grown our capacity. And, I was mentioning that we're going to file around 1,000 to 1,100 cases this year. That's down from 1,700 cases that we were filing in 2019, for example. And there are a lot of different factors that contribute to that, but one of them very easily might be that more people are getting the treatment and help that they need. And so we're not seeing the same number of repeat offenders or people entering the criminal justice system because they're getting the help that they need. I think that that's probably a contributing factor to the numbers being down a little bit.
So it'll be interesting to see, too, once they have the statistics as far as like the CIT program and the number being helped. I think that's going to be interesting when they see statistics. Probably going to be 2 or 3 years down the road to really see
probably so
that impact. But
yeah,
with those funds from the foundation or from Lilly that helped create and make that program really go full force.
You know what? We're early in that process, and I don't want to speak for Mike, but I will say that I still continue to serve on the committee that sort of is guiding that. Either I or Doug Brown go to those when they have those meetings, and I can tell you that they are serious about collecting data and having metrics so that they can show here's how the money is being spent and being spent productively to actually help people that need it. So I know that we're setting ourselves up for success to measure, and that measuring is one of the foundation blocks of success, because then we can say here's what's going well and here's what's not. And then the other thing that I can say right off the bat is that the CIT team has already begun to work. There have been a couple of incidents already. Obviously, I can't discuss the particulars, but I can report back to the community that already we are seeing instances where someone who otherwise would have been going to the jail and getting charges instead was diverted to mental health help and are getting the help that they need and we're going to figure out what the next steps are regarding the criminal acts that are alleged to have happened. But they're not sitting in jail, and they're not continuing to suffer with the mental health issues. They're getting those addressed, and then we'll figure out the other end later. And sometimes we won't have to at all. Sometimes somebody's not going to commit a criminal act; they just need the help. And so I want the community to be aware that this is available to them, that it kind of used to be we had to wait for somebody to be in crisis and commit a crime before there was anything we could do. And now we can help people who are in crisis through the CIT, the Critical Intervention Team, CIT team. We can help people connect to the help that they need before getting into the criminal justice system. And I think that's going to contribute a huge amount to a reduction in use of force incidents, a reduction in violent incidents in the community where we have victims of violent crime, and an increase in people getting the help that they need. And that's kind of what we're here for and what we're all about. It's a very exciting time to watch these things come together. From treatment to CIT to wellness court to the accountability that we have on the criminal justice side. Some people need to go to prison, and we're over the 10 years that I've been in charge, we're number 3 in the state of Indiana for sending people to prison per capita. We still do that. This is not a place where we're just going soft on criminals. But we're measuring when it's time to go to prison versus these other alternatives. And when you measure all of that up, it makes for a really exciting time to be working in the criminal justice field.
All right. Decatur County Prosecuting Attorney Nathan Harter, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it as always. We'll look forward to next month, and I'll try to find another dad joke.
That's all right.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll pass.